My parents got divorced after a lot of wealth that was built up, and my dad didn't, pay any child support, and wealth became a big thing in between the families. It really kind of cemented in my mind that you've got to have a capital gains tax exit plan. And so, fast forward, this is all we do. We just help people, structure and exit and build capital gains tax exit plans.
Hey, what's going on? This is Brett Snodgrass with another episode of the Iron Deep podcast. And I got Brett Swarts on the podcast with me today. What's going on, Brett? Love the name, by the way.
Yeah, we spelled it correctly. It's 2 T's. Anyone's wondering. Yeah, Brett Swarts here, everybody. Nice to be talking with you, Brett, hanging out.
Yes, definitely. Brett, I've had you on a couple of different podcasts. So if you guys know, through the years, I've done real estate podcasts. We do the Investor podcast. This is the Iron Deep podcast, but really, this ties in well with our audience here. So most of our audience is men, business owner men, high net worth men, mostly in the real estate space. And this really ties in because I know I'm a business owner, I'm a real estate guy, and it is that time of year that I'm thinking about, how do I save money on taxes, right? How do I develop the strategy to save money? And I was having a conversation last night. I was introduced to a couple of really high net worth individuals. These guys are real estate developers. They develop probably thousands of houses a year, very, very high end. And I asked him this specific question. I said, what are some of your tax saving strategies? And they didn't have a great answer. They said they just pay a really high amount of taxes, right? So I really want to dive into that. But I know, Brett, you have a very specific niche, how to save as an exit strategy, high net worth individuals selling a large asset. It could be a business. It could be a large real estate. And most people talk about 1031 exchanges. You also have a new book out that we're going to talk about. But man, just welcome to the show. If people don't know you and what you do, you're the founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Can you kind of give us a high level how that even got started?
Yeah, it got started with the pain of the 2008 crash and seeing a lot of my clients, friends, family lose half or all of their wealth when I was in California, helping people buy and sell multifamily properties. Growing up, we built houses with my parents in the Bay Area of California. So we saw what the ability to build wealth can be like, but also it can be a huge, huge painful exit and or a big cause of stress when it's not aligned with mission, vision, values for families, for individuals, for business owners. With the biggest thing sometimes is just timing, like timing of the exits and timing of the tax flow and the cash flow, and I call it debt flow. And so we saw a lot of people get hurt, and the frustration of the 20 to 50% of their proceeds being crushed by capital gains tax, the fear of failing legacy goals, and the guilt of missing out on time with family, the disappointment of making poor financial decisions on these 1031 exchanges that are oftentimes not great decisions, and they knew it wasn't great, but they felt like they had no other way to defer the tax but except through the 1031. And then the regret of leaving money on the table too, when you think it's a good time to sell that Bitcoin or that business or that real estate, but you don't sell because you don't have a good capital gains tax deferral plan. Now, at the time, Bitcoin wasn't around, but in 2008, real estate was, and so were businesses. And so we saw friends, family, and clients, basically wait till the music stopped and then lose. And it took them a little while, but one in particular was a client. His name is Steve. I'll never forget. He's married. He's living in the big house. He's got about $50 million of multifamily properties. A great guy. I meet with him. We're meeting with him in 2007, early on. I said, Steve, it's a good time to sell. Things are hot. And he goes, Brett, I've got a lot of debt. I got to replace the debt in the 1031, which is oftentimes overlooked because it's a debt replacement, forced buy. It's not just a equal or greater buy with the sales price that you sell for. Fast forward, he doesn't sell because he feels trapped by the 1031. He goes on to lose everything. Not only did he lose all the properties, but he lost his house. He lost his marriage. He had 2 young boys. And I kind of flashed back to my childhood. My my parents got divorced after a lot of wealth that was built up, and my dad didn't, pay any child support, and wealth became a big thing in between the families. And I knew at a young age that I didn't ever want wealth to come in between. And so I remember just flashing back, thinking, "Wow, what if this guy could have been out of debt? What if he could have, diversified, got liquid, and still deferred that tax?" So it really kind of cemented in my mind that you've got to have a capital gains tax exit plan beyond just the old 1031 exchange. And so, fast forward, this is all we do. We just help people, structure and exit and build capital gains tax exit plans so they can multiply their freedom and impact.
So that's amazing. And I always think of these individuals just to come to mind. And you're right. I mean, we all kind of pause in our tracks, especially when we've been building this business, building this real estate portfolio for years. And then now you're 20, 25 years into this possibly, and you're getting ready to sell this. One individual, one of my friend's dads, big real estate investor, has probably 120 some properties, all paid off, been building it up for the last 20, 30 years. And, but I think they're pausing in their tracks because they don't know how to defer the taxes. So I want to get into this, and our mind always goes to that 1031 exchange. And I know there's just some cons to that, because I think that's the biggest con, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is just the timing of it. It's like, oh, I'm forced to make a decision very quickly, without, and it might not be the best deal, right, at the end of the day. So can you talk to us a little bit about that, the cons of a 1031, and then go into how you structure different plans without that?
Yeah, you got to start with asking the right question, right? And the question to me it starts with clarity and kind of what you're talking, a little bit of what you're talking about with your friend and his dad and stuff. And you have to ask yourself, what stops you from your purpose, your freedom, for your financial freedom and your family? Like, a lot of times I think over the years have got distracted from what we say is financial freedom, right? And it's not really that much freedom. In fact, a lot of times it leads into, there's nothing wrong with building business and owning real estate and doing all of those things. But this generational wealth shift that's happening with the baby boomers passing it to the millennials, things have changed in the last 20 years. And as it changes, you want to make sure that it's serving your mission, vision, and purpose for your family. And you have the team and the strategies in place that actually do that. The problem with the 1031 exchange is it oftentimes keeps people in the toilets, trash, termites, liability, regulation, all of the things, especially in the New York, the New Jerseys, the Californias, the very high tax states, highly appreciated wealth states. And then they are not able to unlock their mission, vision, and values of what they thought was going to, happen when they have all this millions of dollars. They want to make an impact. They want to be able to give more, but it's locked up into these properties or these businesses, and they're not necessarily producing great ROEs. And so I think you got to have, first of all, a tax flow mindset combined with a cash flow mindset. And the last one is a debt flow mindset. And the problem with the 1031 exchange is it forces you into this square hole. Let's put it that way, right? Mm-hmm. And this is square hole is what? It's 45 days to identify. It's 180 days to close. It only works for investment real estate. You have to replace equal or greater debt. It does not work for Bitcoin or business sales or primary homes. And you're going into stuff that has to be illiquid, right? And so all of these things, there's times to be in good debt. Guess what happened these last 2 years? You don't want to be in debt. In fact, that's resetting, and people are losing half or all of their wealth. It's happening right now again. You're going, gosh, didn't we learn from the last time? Mm-hmm. And so the 1031 exchange does make sense when the property makes sense. In other words, you don't let the tax tail wag the investment dog. The investment dog is just a great dog. You want the dog. It's not even a dog. It's a thoroughbred horse. And you're like, I'm buying this deal, and great, I get to defer my tax into it. And when people get that out of order, this is when you mess up. And so this is what we literally have done. We've proven this strategy. We sold, for example, a client, $13 million car wash in San Diego. They had debt on it. They built it for about 4 million. It jumped all the way to 13.5 million. So they have this massive gain, huge tax. And this is right before interest rates shot through the roofs. And so they sold at the right time. And they're really smart because they're developers. And what do developers want to do? They want to buy the land. They want to develop the land. They want to sell for a profit, go do it all over again. The 1031 exchange would have forced them to sell for 13 million and buy something for 13 million. But they're not buying $13 million land. They're buying land for maybe 500,000 to $1 million. They're putting about 3 million of improvements, and then they're selling it for 13. That's the model, right?
Right.
That's the thoroughbred investment. And so for us and for them, they're like, well, Brett, so you're telling me we can do both? Yes, you can do both with the deferred sales trust without any timing restrictions. So we sold high, we paid off all of their debt, and then they went into real estate, but they went to debt. They did lending at 10%, which is great, which is about 30-day liquid, which is key to here, right? Because you want to have liquidity without having necessarily be subject to just the stock market, right? Which can be very volatile. Number two, they went into Bitcoin. He bought Bitcoin at 40,000 a coin. We're around 100,000 a coin right now, right? That's phenomenal, right? Number three, we sat in money market accounts at 5%, very conservative, right? And that was basically it for the first 12 to 16 months. But then what did we see? We saw the real estate market start to drop. And then we start dollar cost averaging back into passive real estate deals. And then they're looking for land to buy now as the values drop. But guess what? It took 3 years from the 2008 crash to see the bottom of the real estate market. So real estate takes time for it to decline. And so that's really the key here. You got to have a plan that's going to fit your purpose, your mission, vision, and values. And it's just got to be smart. Your instincts are don't buy, then don't buy. But you also don't want to pay the tax. Great. Use our strategy and get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, no, I love that. I want to talk just about the little nuts and bolts. So it all sounds awesome. You kind of alleviate the time and then the pressure and the stress of the 1031 exchange. And you mentioned, right, specific example, sold a car wash for $13 million, has this money. And then you talked about just he's putting his money in the different types of things. And you're right. The 1031 is you take $13 million, you have to buy a $13 million asset, but that's not his strategy. It's forcing him into something it's not his it's not his niche, right?
It's not his thoroughbred horse, baby. It's not the one
yeah.
that's going to take you to the promised land, right?
Yeah,
Take you across the Yellowstone plain and to the top of the mountain, right?
Yeah.
You're having to buy something that's going to actually maybe just squander the entire deal, which is what people have done. They've bought these properties, and then the ship is sinking because the debt is sinking the ship, and they're running out of time because it got reset. Like it's horrible. These multifamily syndicators and operators, they're getting crushed, and they're losing all of their clients' money because they did that 1031 and they rolled it and they rolled it. And they rolled it instead of just being like, hey guys, there's not a great deal here. Let's just all pay our tax. Now, had they known us, we can defer the tax, but it would have been better just to pay the tax looking back now. Hindsight's 2020, but that's what we want to unlock, a mindset of not just buying deals on a one-dimensional plane of cash flow, but it's really 2 and 3-dimensional tax flow. And in this particular, we're talking about capital gains tax and debt flow, which is the one that we took for granted. We got really, really, what's the word? Naive, I think, to think the interest rates are never going to go up. I would hear clients say this and even investors say this, it's always because of this whole thing. Gosh, have we been crushed by that, right? Yeah. And then that's what's sinking the ship. Otherwise, these properties were great. The rents were rising, the operations were good. Yeah. Have we seen insurance increase? For sure. That's been huge, right? Have we seen rents slow down? Yes, we knew that was going to happen. But really what's sinking the ships is the debt has reset, and now there's capital calls, and now it's like, oh gosh, like here we are again. In fact, it's worse now for commercial than it was back in the '08 crash. Yeah. 08 was mostly residential, single family. Of course, some commercial. Now of course, offices are getting hit really hard, and then the apartments that have bad debt or deals that have bad debt are getting or reset debt that are getting hit.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I want to take this back into this example of my friend. I'm probably going to send this episode and not going to say any names or anything like that. But again, he has a dad. He has 100 plus properties, had them for years, debt free, doesn't really have a lot of debt on them. They're paid off, probably worth. I'm just gonna say $15 million. Okay, so $15 million. So in their mind and my mind is okay. I don't want to sell all this at once because of the tax, or I'm going to have to figure out what to do with this money to defer the tax. So maybe I'll sell them off in chunks. Maybe I'll sell 10 a year, let's just say, so that's just to kind of alleviate some of that. But take us into your strategy. I come to you and he has this, could he sell all this for $15 million? And then into your strategy, the deferred tax strategy, what would you do with that?
Yeah. So the first thing I would ask him is, what are you trying to unlock? And what honestly I find most of my clients are trying to unlock is what we call TPI, which stands for truly passive income, right? And there's a concept I want to encourage everyone to think about, that truly passive income is to your impact as compounding interest is to your money. Okay. So this particular family, like a lot of the families we work with, they have built up, 5, 10, 15, 20, $100 million worth of assets, and they're producing the cash flow that they can retire on with it replaces their expenses and all those kind of things, the financial freedom, the rich dad poor dad concept, all that, which is great. But at a certain point, they're not fully retired, even if they have good property management in place. So all of those things are still going on in the background. So truly passive income is unlocking where you literally do nothing. We call it no shoes, no shirt, no problem. If you think about Kenny Chesney on the beach, with the hat on, with the glasses, the shirt off, and he's just playing his guitar, where he's literally having to do nothing, and so the question is, well, how do you do that? Where do you do that? And can you give up some of that control and look at ways to do this and look at a team to help you execute this? And this is the beauty of the deferred sales trust. As he sells these assets, he can move it into one, maybe two trusts at the most, but typically one, two trusts if he has a estate tax, death tax problem, which we can talk about here in a minute. But as he sells, he can move each asset into the trust in exchange for a promissory note. And this is probably one of the best parts about it. A lot of the ROEs, return on equity for our clients before they find us, are somewhere between 3 and 5%, right? They're actually really good assets, but they're maybe fully depreciated. So that's not great, because then the cash flow is producing more tax for them. 2, they're fully paid off, right? Because you don't want to take risk, which it sounds like he's been very smart about that. But at the same time, he's going, gosh, this 15 million can be unlocked in a way that I don't have to do it all myself. Can we increase that ROE from 3 to 5 to like 8 to 9 or 10 or maybe even higher? And that's what we find is we can typically increase cash on cash return by 30, 40, 50, 60%. For example, we did a client, helped a client out of California, Warren and Catherine, and you can actually watch their entire story on this on my YouTube channel. And they had a property for $2.5 million. Their NOI was about $120,000, Brett. And it's a good property, right? And good location, good tenants. The biggest challenge was they were having to drive a couple hours, or at least Warren on the weekend, to do stuff, right? And it's not like he was just being taken away from his family. And he's like, we've got these multiple millions of dollars. And I said, look, we can go from 120,000 to about 190,000, but it's truly passive income. He's like, Brett, so no more toilets, trash liability, insurance, regulation. Wow, and I can spend more time with my 2 twin daughters. So we talked about he traded the 3 T's for the 2 T's, and the 2 T's being his twin daughters who are 10 years old. Between 10 and 18 are the time that he's going to have the most amount of time with them. And he's like, I don't want to trade my weekends or my time for driving in traffic when I could increase my cash on cash return, have no liability, and also, oh, by the way, if I want to get back in, I can. So this is the best kept secret of this. If the son in this scenario that you're talking about wants to buy his own deal, or his dad wants to partner with him, or they want to do it together, the trust itself can be the funding source. We call it the go fund yourself, right? Versus having to get bank debt or get other equity come in. The trust itself can buy a deal with you, right? Easy. You form an LLC, you go buy the deal, but it doesn't have to be under any kind of constraint. It might be to start a business. We've had clients start businesses by partnering with the trust.
So the trust is the lender.
It's not a lender, because if it lends you the money, it'd be taxable, but it's a joint venture partner. So let's do the math here, right? Let's say the $15 million goes into the trust. Let's say we write the note at 9%. Okay. So it's owed back to him about $1.35 million per year. By the way, he may or may not need that 9%. right away. He may only need 3% or 5%. And that's a cool part too, because we can defer the income tax that he's not collecting yet, right? It's deferring until the next year, and we can push it out for a very long time. You can pass it to kids. But long story short, let's just say he's taking half of the interest. So he's taking $675,000 per year. He'll pay tax on that as he receives that payment. The other $675 is accruing and earning interest. We're investing into maybe some deals that you have, Brett, that are doing, 8 to 12%, and then an IRR maybe of 13 to 17 over a life of the 3 to 5 year term, right? Your dollar cost averaging into different deals. He might do a little bit of mobile home park. He might do a little bit of multifamily, a little bit of industrial, whatever they want to do. A little bit of, it's S&P 500. I mean, it's open source there, right? And then the next part is immediately that 15 million is there. Let's say we take 10 million and he or his son finds a deal that makes a ton of sense, and they form an LLC, and the money goes from the trust to the LLC in a joint venture partnership. And let's say they buy a $30 million apartment complex. Okay. They put 30% down. Guess what? First of all, when you do a new LLC, this is key. This is the tax flow strategy here. Guess what we unlock? A new depreciation schedule. Okay. Now this is huge, because if dad and mom had a zero depreciation schedule, and this is the counter to the stepped up basis is what I'm going to wait for and get my kids a stepped up basis. Well, what if you can get a 80% basically stepped up basis, if the way you think about this, a new depreciation schedule right now, dad and mom, right? And then you do the dollar costs, you do the time value of money on that. If you have another 20 or 30 years to live, and we can unlock it now. And oh, by the way, buy a $30 million asset. And that goes to 40 million, maybe in 5 or 10 years. So we're being good stewards with the capital. We're not just sitting and being passive and saying, oh, I'll just wait to die. Or, oh, I don't want to take on the debt. Okay, well, that's fine. You don't have to take on debt. You can also just buy a $10 million property, debt free, buy it cash. So these are all the things that we will work with the families to understand what they're trying to do, and then engineer a capital gains tax exit plan, which really moves into a bigger wealth plan. And but hopefully that answers your question, Brett, on some of what we would look at here.
Yeah. So is there any time restraints? So that $50 million goes into this trust, and is there any time restraints on it, like the 1031?
No, so that's zero, right? Yeah, we call it the Netflix version to the old Blockbuster. Instead of returning the movie in 3 days, right? You can just, you have ongoing fees with what we do, right? But there's no timing restrictions. There's no like kind replacement requirement.
You mentioned the other gentleman that sold the car wash, and you mentioned they put it into a Bitcoin, or they put it into the stock market, it sounds like, or something. You can do that with some of this?
Yeah, exactly. We had another client. He did a $17 million billboard exit out of Sacramento. Those digital billboards you see all over California, or that was his company. He sold a portion of the company. So he sold it. We deferred all the tax, massive taxes too. He would have paid something like 37 to 40%, of the gain. So we deferred it all, and he put it into NVIDIA. He wasn't as much, he's not a crypto or Bitcoin guy. He put it into NVIDIA, and he put in NVIDIA about, this was about 2.5 years ago now. And NVIDIA has just continued to take off like a rocket ship. So that's part of what he did. And then he put it into some general S&P, some safe, diversified stuff. And that's the cool part, right? And by the way, he's waiting for an opportunity. He's an entrepreneur,
right?
And when the deals come up, when he's ready, he will buy other things. He's just like, I'm making too much easy, truly passive money, and via the trust. Why would I go do something until I'm ready? And that's the point, right? It's ready when you are.
Yeah, and that's so true. I mean, you don't know when the good deal is going to pop up. I mean, in the real estate world, you knock on doors, you're trying to market, you're trying to do these different things, but you don't know when that home run deal is going to, land on your doorstep. So, that's awesome. So I guess, going into that, there's some simple ways to put your money, to earn some money, but searching for some of your niche deals, your thoroughbred deals that you're used to, but you just don't know when those are going to come, and you have that extra time.
Spot on.
Right. You mentioned a promissory note and things like that. That's where I got a little, and maybe some of my listeners are a little confused on that. So the money goes into the trust, and you mentioned paying interest on that while the money's in there. I know there's fees to you guys because obviously you guys are running your business, but can you talk about that a little bit? Like, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does this all work, right? Because you have to understand that a 1031 exchange is the continuity strategy, right? You're trading equity into, and you're trading that equity into other equity positions as an owner. So you have an ownership hat on, right? What we're doing here is we're saying take off the ownership hat and become a lender. We're using IRC 453, which is an installment sale or seller carryback, right? Which your CPA knows, and if you're in real estate, you know as well, where you as the seller can become the lender for the buyer.
Right.
And so, real simple. Let's say you had a $10 million property in New York and you had a zero basis and you're about to pay $4 million of capital gains tax if you sell. And if Joe down the street wants to buy it, you could finance Joe the full $10 million. You could finance him.
A lot of people try to do that. I mean, that's a very normal strategy in the real estate.
Normal strategy, right? And we call that it's an installment sale. People know how to do it. It's been proven. It's not any controversy with the law, or it goes back over 100 years. It's an installment sale. Obviously, the downsides is you're putting all your eggs into the old basket that you have zero control over now, right? You have no liquidity, no diversification, and they might be paying you 5%. Maybe you negotiate 6 or 7 with the interest rates right now, right? And you're just kind of just sitting and hoping he does that. And the worst part about all of this, by the way, is why did you sell? Well, I sold to be rid of the toilets, trash liability, and stuff. Well, it takes about maybe a year or 2 or 3 for someone to mess your deal up. Then you have to foreclose. And just as you're getting, the Kenny Chesney vibes on the beach and doing all the things, you're having to come back to take it over. And now you have to start over again and pick up all the pieces. And so that's why most people don't actually do old school, I call it Hollywood video installment sales, right? What they do with us is the deferred sales trust. And the reason is it's same concept. It's an installment sale, but there's 3 parties. We tell Joe to come with the $10 million in cash. We don't care how he gets the money through debt or not, but we're not going to finance Joe, the buyer. But he's going to cooperate with the deferred sales trust, right? And the seller first sells it to the trust for $10 million in exchange for a promissory note. And the trust sells it to Joe for $10 million. So the trust bought and sold for the same price, Brett. So there's no gain there. And the trust receives the $10 million into Charles Schwab, liquid, diversified. And the seller receives a promissory note back for $10 million, typically written at 7, 8, 9% interest net of recurring fees is the way we structure them. And they're like, okay, sweet. And then the buyer's gone. The other buyer's gone, the property's gone, that's gone. And the funds can be collateralized or, secured for investments. This is secure the collateral to pay the note in the biggest companies in the world, right? Or the best multifamily mobile home park or industrial operators or whatever is really the risk tolerance and the focus of the client and what they want to go into, or they can go do their own deal again, right? So this is not a box anymore. It's really like open source of what you want to do. Now the trust will pay back. It's a 10-year note. Typically we structure with interest only payments, starting in somewhere in the first couple of years. You can delay for a couple of years. A lot of our clients will delay for 1 year or 2 years, any payments, and let it just build up and accrue. It can also be adjusted. So you might say, like I have a client, we just exited, they did a $16 million dental practice sale. They had their first tranche come in, a couple $1 million up front. They have another tranche coming in next year. But guess what? They're staying on with the company for at least 2 years, maybe 3 or 4 years, and they're getting a huge income. They negotiated a big income. So guess what we're doing? We're freezing the payments on the trust while they're still making a higher income. And then fast forward the TPI, truly passive income mindset here. Once they retire from their business, that they just sold, then we'll turn on the trust to replace their income, right? Like it's brilliant. And so their tax liability in the meantime is 100% deferred on not only the capital gains tax, but also the income tax. Okay. And then let me give you one more little part here. Along the way, he's also going to become a real estate professional by partnering with the trust, buying deals, structuring deals. And guess what that's going to do? We're going to use the money they would have paid in tax to unlock new depreciation schedules and real estate professional status to offset his active income while he's still working as a dentist. Well, I mean, he's working on the dental practice. He's not actually in the, doing the dental work anymore. He's working the whole business. And so this is where it gets kind of 3-dimensional, right? And a whole other level of ability to unlock in wealth and freedom.
No, I love it. I love it. So, and I mean, these might be some of these elementary questions, but so you got this promissory note with the trust, and you're paying, let's just say 9% interest only payments. That interest that goes into the trust and just kind of adds more money into the trust. That's kind of for you to play with, right? Or
100%. Exactly. Yeah. Like, so the Bitcoin one, when it went from 40,000 to 100,000 a coin, it's just propelling into the trust. It's a 10-year note with a prompt, with a balloon payment due at the end of year 10. And at the end of year 10, you can renew for 10 years, keep it going. Kids can step into your shoes. But exactly right. Like, if we go 10 million in, and say hypothetically, we put it into something that doubled the money in 2 years, there's 20 million in there, right? You have the ability to work with that. Now, understand that this is,
now you have this. You just basically created a lending company.
So a couple things on that.
But
a couple little pieces on it real fast. Okay, so the trust itself only owes you the money that it went in there plus the interest rate net of the fees. Okay, so it owes you that 10 million. Let's call it $900,000 a year to keep it simple, right? That's what it owes you. So any excess outside of additional planning, there has to be an ability for the trustee, that's our role, third party unrelated trustee, to keep business purpose here, the ability to make a profit opportunity there. Now, here's the reality. On that 10 million, we're if you do that joint venture partnership, you get the majority of the upside through that LLC. We typically do like an 80%. With the preferred return due back to the trust, but 80% goes to the client. Okay, so they get the majority of the upside, but the trust puts up all of the money. So we want to structure this to give you as much upside but still remain commercially reasonable. Real quick on the legal part of this. Nearly a 30-year track record, over 30 no change audits, thousands of transactions, billions of assets is sold over all the years. Tax attorney, CPA, business partner, he does all of the tax and legal work, lifetime audit defense. That's the legal part. I'm the third-party trustee. I'm kind of like a third-party qualified intermediary, a 1031 exchange company, kind of like that, right? It's kind of like we're setting up a mini 1031 company for you. Different tax law, different rules, but kind of similar. You have to give up some controls. Okay, I'm a trustee. I have to approve of the investments, and if it was Brett's deal, he has to. He was the note holder. He also has to approve, right? So we have that going there. We're a friendly trustee, right? We want what you want. We become an asset to the team to help you make great decisions, and that's really what we are, right? But at the same time, we have entrepreneurial clients who already know where they want to go with the money, and we're like the cheerleader on the side, just cheering you on, staying within the guardrails. We have others that are actually looking for more hands-on, like help to structure these investments and such. We work with financial advisors, some of the best in the country that can come in as well. We can bring in your financial advisor if you're wanting them to serve there. So it's a team. It's a team approach here, right? And that's the key, and it's flexible.
No, I love that. I love that. Final question. Thanks. This is awesome. This is amazing information, and really digging in here, guys. And I think this is a strategy this to put this in your tool belt, especially most of the guys out there, business owners, real estate guys. And as you're thinking of deferring your taxes, I think it's just a great strategy. My last question would be this. All right. So you set this up, you got this deferred tax strategy, this trust set up, and then now you're maybe 10 years, 15 years into this. Is your money always in this trust? Is there ever a time, I don't even know if you'd want to or not, but is there ever a time that, you're reaching towards, old age and you're thinking about, right, death, maybe all that stuff, right? So like, is there ever a time to get out of the trust, or does that just pass on to your family? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it all depends. And previously in the episode, we did talk about what's called the death tax. We kind of hinted at it. So you need to be aware of the death tax and the exemption amounts. So Trump just got elected, so we think it's probably going to stay at the higher amounts, meaning about 26, 28 million married is the exemption amount. And then about, let's call it 12, 14 million married are single. Would probably stay that, but it is set to expire in 2026, but they'll probably renew that is what we think will happen, okay? That being said, if your net worth is greater greater than, let's just say 30 million married, you also have what's called a death tax issue. In fact, if you've seen the show Yellowstone, that's the entire premise of the entire show. John Dutton is the call him a billionaire, right? They don't quite show what the land is worth, but let's call him, he's worth $1 billion of all this amazing land. And Beth, the daughter's like, Dad, you got to sell the land while you're still alive to get it outside your taxable estate. And if you don't, and they kill you and you die, then they're going to take it anyways because of the death tax. We can't afford it. And this is the whole premise of the show. And so at that point, Brett, I'm sitting there with my wife and I go, Kevin Costner, I go, John, I said, sell the land, do the DST, use the DST, I can help you, right? And so here's the key. Like, without any charity, life insurance, or gifting required, we can use what's called the DST Plus. It's a 2.0 version. On that $1 billion exit, we can get it outside the taxable estate, okay? Now, that $1 billion is outside the taxable estate forever, and all of the growth is also outside of the taxable estate. And the children on this particular strategy, on the 2.0, can be the beneficiaries of that trust. The downside is as the payments come out to mom and dad, they're going to pay partial cap gains and ordinary income, okay? Partial on that. But that's one thing we want to make sure we're understanding. And to kind of bring this home here is you need to ask yourself, what is my net worth? Question one. Number two, how much of that net worth is inside of my taxable estate? Number three, how much do we want to gift to charity, or what is our plan with that? Because we are in the largest wealth transfer in the history of the planet. It's 84 to 100 trillion over the next 15 years. And Brett, this is our parents, right? The baby boomers that are passing it to us, basically, right? And this transfer, there's never been a larger wealth transfer in the history of the planet. There's 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every single day in the US alone. And there's about 80 million baby boomers in the US alone. So this is staggering. We call this the reverse Tea Party. About 250 years ago, our ancestors fought for freedom through fighting the excess taxation and not having the rights, right, that the representation. Well, 250 years later, we've been blessed tremendously with a lot of wealth in America, and perhaps in the greatest in the history of the planet. And over this next 15 years, it will be decided if the U.S. government takes the majority of this, and essentially we believe if they do, freedom and impact really declines because they're very inefficient with how they use and tax the money, right? Mm-hmm. Versus keeping it in the hands of the people to create jobs, to build affordable housing, to make an impact on the ground. And that's what the battle that we're in. It's massive, and it's happening over the next 15 years. So that is the first thing to understand, okay? It's really, really important to understand debt tax and how to eliminate it. And we have that solution for that. And then the second part on the DST 1.0, the kids can just step into your shoes. And that's what most of our clients will do. They'll step into the parents' shoes. There's no stepped up basis here. The promissory note is a part of their living trust, and the kids can step into shoes and keep it going. And what most of our clients will do is they'll say, look, I don't want any of the principal to ever go down, ideally, and I want to just live off the interest. So on the 1.0, we can just live off the interest, but I want to be able to unlock the TPI, the truly passive income, knowing that we can invest with proven operators, especially in multifamily, mobile home park, industrial, and diversified too, if we want to, within the stock market with financial advisors and such, and produce that consistent income. So I'll pause there, Brad. I know that's kind of a longer answer, but that's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. That's amazing. Well, I know, guys, we dove into a lot, and Brett, I just really appreciate you, being on the podcast episode and everything that you're doing just to help individuals in our audience and just business owners and entrepreneurs in general. So, if someone's interested in this, I know you guys have a website, you got a book, right? Talk about that. But how can they just get more information on what this is about?
Yeah. So you go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, and there you're going to find a free ebook. But you can also purchase the full book called Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan on Amazon. And we have people like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank in the book. We have Tyler McBroom, the CPA for Tony Robbins, in the book. And so I have a few chapters too. I'm just sharing my story, diving into the deferred sales trust, kind of all of these things. And you're going to get some insider secrets secrets on how you can use this to unlock and build a capital gains tax exit plan. And if you want to follow me on social media or LinkedIn, or check out the best 1031 exit plan, which we actually didn't touch on, but it's make sure that you're in a 1031 exchange that allows you to have a backup plan, and we have that available. You go to brettswarts.com. That'll give you literally all of the links to all of the things, all of the social media, and the book, and everything else too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brett, for being on the podcast today. Really appreciate it. We're going to put that in our show notes. So go to our YouTube channel, guys, on our description, or our website, and check out the show notes on this particular episode with Brett Swarts, and check out the website. This is awesome. So thanks again for being on the podcast, Brett. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brett.